was during the 60s when there was a focus on civil rights, segregation, integration, and when there was anything said about, well, we can't go here, we can't go there, well, we've got our own anyway. That's when the word came out about, well, we have our own fort.
The reason Fort Mose came into fruition was basically there had been a number of escaped slaves in the late 1600s, early 1700s that made their way down here to St. Augustine, and King Carlos at the time, basically the British were demanding their return or some sort of a ransom, if you will, payment for the slaves having escaped down here to St. Augustine. King Carlos III at the time thought it best that by his decree that any freed slaves that made their way down here to St. Augustine would be granted their freedom.
There were freedom seekers from the Carolinas that would come down to Spanish Florida, and they were given their freedom if they lived at Fort Mose. They became Catholic, and the able-bodied men joined the militia. That was the requirements to live free at Mose.
They were first asked to serve in the black militia in defense of the Castillo de San Marco in downtown St. Augustine, 2 miles away.
Spain and England were at odds at that time.
In June of 1740, we saw the Battle of Bloody Mose, where over 700 of Oglethorpe's troops descended on St. Augustine. The inhabitants of the fort were about 70 strong at the time, black militia. They saw the British descending down on the fort and made a strategic retreat to St. Augustine, to where they gathered up over 300 Spaniards that were in garrison in the Castillo de San Marco. Came back the next day and actually defeated the British. 126 soldiers were killed and 40 were captured, and a lot of the fighting was done was hand-to-hand combat, hence the name Battle of Bloody Mose. What the Spaniards and the black militia did at the end of this particular conflict was actually burn their own fort to the ground, basically destroyed their own fort, keep the British from recapturing it at a future date.
That was the first major defeat of the British in the New World.
The second fort, actually, the inhabitants were within the fort walls. It was a much larger structure. That was the one that was constructed in 1752, and the one that we unearthed here back in 1987.
I mean, a lot of folks don't realize that the Underground Railroad actually came south long before it started going north.
We want to kind of tell the accurate history of our nation. We were the first underground railroad, which a lot of people aren't aware of.
But they were able to live harmoniously together because they had a common cause, and that common cause was freedom.